Great work, Frank. That was such a nuanced, multi-layered, multicolored score. I love the use of alto saxophone. Um, Now, just before we launch into this, I just want to remind people that I am evaluating things backwards. So I'll be looking at the E section first, then I'll drop back to the D section, and then I will jump back to the beginning of the piece and then evaluate forwards. And the reason for this is that by now we've had, 70 or 80 evaluations that started with the beginning of the piece and worked their way forward. And I talked about sections B and C quite extensively. So it would be nice just to start with section E and kind of see where that takes us, and that way, I'll be at my freshest and I'll have the most to say about those sections, right? If I start to go on and on and on, at least it'll be about the juicy stuff first, right? The newest stuff first. All right. Well, Frank, you really freely interpreted a lot of things, and what I would kind of say is that some of the free interpretation, some of the kind of rewriting that you did, I think you need to manage the tempo a little bit so that the gestures kind of connect, right? For instance, like right in here, getting us to this solo part here, I think just at the standard speed, at the standard tempo with kind of no adjustment, there isn't really it doesn't really hand us this solo on a silver platter. Do you know what I mean? It just sort of runs right into it. And there's some similar stuff happening throughout different little phrases, and then there's also the danger, right, that a certain added things will obscure the general direction, the main idea of a phrase. So for instance, right here you have this lovely harmony in the background, really soft flutes and clarinets playing, kind of a haunting background to the harp, right? And the harp has got this beautiful little section where it is interpreting what's written in the piano part, but then it just kind of takes off into this arpeggiated stuff while the other instruments, the harmonizing instruments, take over on the functions. Well, that's all great, except right in here, this alto saxophone has so much more power than the harp, and the change of pitch right in here also adds to it's like an added function, which then just kind of confuses the issue, right, of the harp. Now, of course, these pitches are sort of a part of the they are a part and they aren't a part, right? So if we think that these pitches sound down a major six from written, so down a major six from G sharp is B, right? So that isn't exactly part of the harmony right in here. Okay, and then if we think down a major six from F sharp, that gives us A, which eventually ends up was where the music ends up, right? But by moving to the A, the sounding A, so quickly, ahead of time, it obscures the line, all right? So I mean, I'm not opposed to this, to the harmony that you added in here. It's just that in terms of being able to clearly really hear the functions of the important instrument in here, which I feel is the harp, right? It's like a solo, right? And that which leads to the marimba part and so on. Now, I have additional things to say about Bisbigliando, which I'm sure you were counting on and dreading and everything else. And I'd like to sort of look at E from the beginning of E. So let's jump back to this right in here. And just kind of as a comment, you sort of break the rules here, right? What does Barvinsky want at the end of D? He wants the energy to stay strong all the way through to the very, very last chord, and then on the last chord he wants a diminuendo, right? So I mean, you don't have to do what Barvinsky wrote in his score, but it's just, by not doing that, it just, everything that happens just becomes a very ordinary diminuendo all the way to the end. So we don't get that sense of blasting that suddenly reduces, and with one or two instruments just kind of sitting on the octaves. So yeah, all right, but like that's it's just, I guess, a matter of taste or whatever. But it would have been nice to see more. Like, I'm starting to see more and more orchestrators as we go along in these evaluations, kind of make the choice to diminuendo instead of keeping the energy strong. So just kind of takes the meaning out of the sustained octaves that start to that emerge from the diminuendo of the rest of the harmony, right? It's already getting soft, right? So we lose some impact there. Okay, so here we've got some bisbigliando, right? So the correct way to write this would be a tremolo between B and A sharp, right? So one hand would be playing B's, and the other ones would be playing, C flat, I meant to say. So this would be, sorry, I was just writing a piece in B flat major. So I was just getting everything all mixed up in my head. So yeah, so you would be doing a alternating between the B string and the C string tuned to C flat, right? So that gives a range of pitches that are inharmonic equivalents, and that is more pitches to pluck before the finger plucks it again, right? So you don't get the kind of cutoff as much. But all the same, I don't know if you have read my my orchestration tip about bisbigliando being very, very quiet. The reason why I ask is that I think that some of your scoring here is keeping in mind the fact that bisbigliando is an extremely soft effect. But then there's another part of your approach which suggests to me that you don't really believe that, right? Like the beginning. And we'll talk about like the realities of that. So this is you're saying piano, right? All right, and the player is not going to be able to really add more than about piano, maybe mezzo piano's worth of force, but the actual sound is going to be whispering, right? And if you've checked out my tip recently on extreme dynamics, bisbigliando is an extreme dynamic effect, right? So it is almost niente, right? It's like it is between triple P and quadruple P, right? So the idea of triple P being like the softest you can play musically, right? Using all of the nuances and just like the full range of everything that would go into something to be completely musical. And then quadruple P is starting to like lose certain elements of that are associated with musicality, right? So that is where bisbigliando is. So it, like if you have ever listened to some recordings of the planets and listened to Uranus right there at the end, and just like sometimes it's just like there's just like you can hear this kind of glimmering and twinkling and stuff, but it just is so soft. It's the kind of thing that if you were to take it out you would notice, right? But like leaving it in, you also don't notice that much. The average audience isn't going to hear it, right? So that is the reality of what's going to happen here. It's really going to be almost completely, absent. So like it's the kind of thing where like if you had like a marimba tremoloing just over, but in octave Bs, you would get like a fuller sound and a really similar to what people intend when they score bisbigliando, right? It's a very, very similar sound. Okay, well, all right, so enough of the bisbigliando rants. Let's go on to, just imagine if I had done like an ASMR whisper for, like really describing what went on here, just to kind of make a point about Bisbiglandia being a whisper. But anyways, so let's go on with the motion of this melody from the bottom range up towards, trading off to bass ground. I love the trill right in here, and the trill down to triple P. And then this is cool. Yeah, really like. Yeah, I mean, you can hear in the mock-up, right? That's like the amount of energy that a horn gains. It's sort of like the problem with transporters, right? With like teleportation. If you had a teleportation machine, if you transported yourself to different elevations and different latitudes on the planet, you would gain and lose energy, right? So it really sort of reminds me like leaping up here an octave, you are like suddenly gaining all of this. You'll gain momentum from the Earth spinning, depending on like if you are going from a north to a south, and you'll gain energy, like you might be hot all of a sudden or cooler. So it's the same thing. Just really suddenly we teleported to a place where we have just a little bit more energy, and yeah. So yeah, it sounds pretty cool though, and it's a great way to make sure that like the melody does not get overwhelmed by the accompaniment. It's really kind of interesting that you have this the clarinets and the flutes working together, and I think it kind of works. You have like an enclosure right in here, like with the second flute enclosed between your clarinets, right? Clarinet sounding down a minor third. Everybody who's watching who is not remembering their transposition, right? So that means that the second flute right in here is going to be enclosed by the clarinets on either side. So, it sounds okay in a mock-up, but will it sound okay in real life? It's always a risk. I mean, you are helping because you have pianissimo dynamic here, but it would be a lot less risky to have like a stack dynamic. And, as far as like and here you have like doubling of clarinets and flutes. So the second flute here, like, I mean, if everybody's really soft and listening to each other, it'll work. But like it's one of those things where the slightest pressure and the second flute will tend to start to disappear, right? A little bit more pressure, it's completely gone. And then here you're pushing up to this, this bum bum, this written F sharp sounding B, right? So yeah, just another thing that will sort of eat at the E right here. So if it were actually like the pitch of A, right, there would be less risk of the second flute getting swallowed here, and absolutely none for the first clarinet. Were the first clarinet to take the E, right, and the second flute to take the written C sharp sounding A. Written C, not C sharp, written C sounding A natural. In the for the second flute, sorry. And once again, I've just got my head in this other piece. I have to sort of pull it out of that piece. There were no pieces at the right level for teaching piano of this one particular key, and B flat at the so I just had to write one myself, and it was great, but my brain is still half stuck in that piece. And now here, I noticed that like you have gotten rid of the you've gotten rid of the tenuto marks, right? So you're just going da da da, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, you could put them in, you'd put them back in and do like portato, ta, right? So you have more of that kind of sort of slightly tiptoeing or sort of not tiptoeing, but kind of slightly mincing quality. But I think that the balance here is really beautiful, the way that you've got it all set up. And I love the sul ponticello tremolo in the background with the strings. The only problem that I have is that I'm wondering if it's just too much bass clarinet in a row, right? So you have the basses coming in, you trade off here. I really love the, diminuendo to triple P and crescendo from P to mezzo forte. Okay, that's a beautiful trade-off or trade-off dovetailing. Okay, and then, then you have your antique cymbals. That's so cool. Okay, so, just the question of like, now we're using it to track from below, to track your French horn solo, and I'm just wondering whether or not like bassoon wouldn't be a better choice here, to just to kind of give us a different color, right? But I mean, it is a cool idea to have a solo like this, where you've got a two octaves below, you've got a bass clarinet kind of creepily tracking from below. Very nice. So, and now here we have like this little touch of alto sax coming in, sort of joining in. Yeah. Oh, and just really lovely colors right in here. Right. Yeah, so ba da 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 bum bum. So there's a implied leap here, and you kind of pay it off, and you kind of don't, and I think that that's actually good. I like the sense of descending here. I'm still not too sure about the enclosures, but I like like for instance, I mean, taking the second flute down to B and A here with a horn melody. And also alto saxophone, which has a tendency to absorb the overtones of the other instruments. That makes me very cautious about the second flute scoring in here. Yeah, I mean, I just really, really want people to think of the realities of low flute scoring disappearing and just really try. I mean, I know you are trying, Franck. You're scoring really extremely delicate scoring, but you're also kind of adding complicated things in here. Like, not only is the alto saxophone going to, the function here distracts from what the harp is doing, but it's also adding weight underneath, not too far away from your second flute, which is playing this octave, right? And the octave is almost a throwaway because it's being doubled by your first clarinet, right? So, I mean, the second flute will be contributing about like maybe 10 to 15% of the weight here, right? So I mean, if that is what you want, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, but this is all really lovely right in here with the marimba, and yeah, I mean, it's great. And then you're left with this oboe solo, ya da da dum, some bassoons, right, and just strings, and then ba da 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 da, an English horn. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a bit of a mind twist, right? Because the way you're scoring your alto saxophone, it has a real similarity to English horn, not just in the way that your mock-up interprets the sound of an alto saxophone, but also just like the registers that you're using and the character of the solos that you're assigning it, right? I'm not seeing the word solo used very much, but it might very well, help define for the conductor what part is supposed to be more prominent. And this is all gorgeous right in here. Yeah, see, so like another thing, Franck, is I would really prefer the number of the bar to be right here at the beginning of the system. Okay, it's just Maybe in reformatting your pages and so on, you had them set for certain pages, and then you had to turn it into a more of a horizontal score, and so the numbers got stuck in certain places. But yeah, I just would really prefer just a standard bar number over here, and then I can count from there. You don't need to have it out here in the middle. All right. Yeah, and this is just really, really lovely. The English horn trading off to the cellos. And, I think you could have done the same exact thing that you did before. Da, 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 da. You could have had the same exact thing. The cello sneaking in and absorbing into the sound of the English horn, which is fading out, right? You could have done this, but maybe that's just a little too silly to keep doing. And this is all just really beautiful. The way that you kind of turn this into almost like a little wind-up toy at the end. Really, really nice. Great use of antique cymbals. And here we go back to D. Yeah, I'm not so convinced that one piccolo, one oboe, and one bassoon can carry the entire weight of that function of those cascading octaves from D. And I also don't feel that they really connect, right? You can sort of hear them, you can kind of barely hear them. You got a lot of pitched percussion players. Could they have been helping out at all? Like maybe bring in like a glockenspiel or vibraphone or anything. Maybe a xylophone with like soft mallets, or just some kind of some weight, or just maybe adding more wind instruments or something like that. Because yeah, just the way that this is scored now, we have got these thumps here on timpani and contrabassoon and double bass, and we've got a very, very generous helping of melody and harmony and you even add to that with the flutes, and then you've got the counter melody in alto saxophone, which I think is absolutely charming and beautiful all the way through. And and then you have got the just a couple just very minimal instruments on the cascading octaves. I think you need a little bit more weight there. Otherwise it's a little ephemeral. Now this absolutely won't do. You can't just go 2 1 2 1 2 1. You have to have these parts in separate voices to help out the conductor and the copyist and everybody else. Okay. So, like, see the way you've got things scored here, like in separate voices? So you just have to keep going on with that, right? So, like here, you would need the stems to go up, and then to have the rests below in second voice, and then this rest could be shared between first and second voice, and then you would need a rest for the first voice and the second voice here, and then you would need a rest for the second voice and the first voice, and so on. Do you see what I mean? You don't try to stay away from this. I know that this is sort of just written for an orchestration challenge. So the focus is more on the orchestration than it is on the notation or the engraving. But yeah, just try not to do that. Okay, even in these challenges. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the way that this is scored. You got your octave. It's pretty much a direct transcription. Octave violins here, and then we have got the violas and the cellos working together, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah, with A sharp and F sharp. yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. It's yeah, really just a direct transcription, and then you've got the flutes coming in to sort of add like some doubling with the first flute. And like once again, just not to be too picky about this, but like sending the second flute down here, you know, like this is the point at which your first violin needs more weight. Like it's got it might have the first flute above, but the first flute above is kind of going down into areas where it gets swallowed more by the overtones of the first violins anyway, right? So we're just kind of compounding the error because the second flute is going to be doubling and just really kind of almost, taken like it's gonna really not lend that much tone weight to the combination here. And then on top of that, you've got not too far away, you've got your alto saxophone kind of doing its cool little thing in here, right? So, could this have been maybe like have like one of your clarinet players take over right here when it goes down to G sharp, and then rise up and then trade off. I know like what you intend to do here, but I just really feel it's just a little underpowered. And I know, look, you're holding back on your alto saxophone and everything else, but just the general, like the overall conception of it, right, has that problem built into it from the beginning, right? So rather than say, well, I'm going to start with the idea that we're doing octave flutes here, and I've got a saxophone solo, and it's going to be in support of the flutes are going to be in support of the violins, and so on and so forth. Everything works out fine until you jump down a fifth here, right? And at that point, everything just sort of changes. Like the registers absolutely change, and they change the equation. All right, so I think that this needs just a little bit of rethinking or rewriting. And once again, I really prefer the measure numbers right over here. Yeah, and then it's just really really lovely idea here, and that if you were going to score this forte diminuendo here before the your melody instruments and your other parts have really reached a forte, it's kind of strange you're putting the forte at the end on a rest, right? So shouldn't it be here or like here at the end of this rest? So it really is all going to be about the alto saxophone right in here. And once more, I just really feel you need more weight on your octave, your cascading octaves, because it's you have this situation where these these sort of droplets are dropping down, right, or they're sort of rippling downwards. Then you've got this solid timpani just going boom, right, along with the contrabassoon and double bass. So, like having such skimpy weight on the first couple of exchanges of octaves just kind of is making them more and more, especially when you get to this point, like you just, like, yeah. Right. Yeah, I see why you're doing what you're doing, right? And so on. So, yeah. And then I feel this is also a little underweighted too, just to have a little bit of double bass and contrabassoon, and you just have like just second bassoon in here. It's kind of strange. You split I think this is meant to be second and this is first, and then that is second, and then once again you just number them. Try not to do that, all right? Just make it clearer. Yeah, so I just think your leaping octaves need to have a little bit more weight, especially with all these thuds here, right? And crash on the suspended cymbal and so on. But having said that, lovely orchestrating here, lovely interpretation in the strings and everything else. Nice transcription of those very Ravel-like harmonies. I sort of feel like this is like the most, in some ways, for you anyway, this is like one of the most under orchestrated parts, right? I almost feel like you're just trying to get from here to there, right? And that like this part could have had more excitement, more of a build up to right here, right? Just a more involvement, more pressure, more even anticipation and foreshadowing and everything else. So that by the time we got to here, these trumpets, these kind of scorching trumpets in here, are not so, not such a just a sudden surprise, right? I almost feel like we should have built to there with some of these colors, so till finally when they were added, like they're not, yeah, they are part of it. And you can see just how easily your trumpets shout right over the violins, and that'll be true in that'll be true in real life as well as in your mock-up. And yeah, just very, very piercing to have A2, A2, clarinets doubling the trumpet on top. Okay, so yeah, so this is really strange the way that you've scored this. You say 2-3, right? So you want your second and third trumpet. So I mean, what are you saving up your first trumpet player for? They don't play high. They haven't, and also they're not coming from a place where they just played something scorching, right? So like before, like you went up to a G here. That's like nothing. That's no big deal. And playing this really kind of loud and directly, that's also no big deal. So, I mean, if you really are going to only use like two trumpet parts throughout the piece, I'm sort of flipping back here to kind of see, yeah, if my suspicions are correct here. Yeah, so you really only have two trumpet parts in the entire piece, so just use two trumpet players, right? You don't need three trumpet players, just use two trumpet players, and then you can just do away with the 2-3 thing, okay? That would be my advice here. All right, and maybe a fade in here would be nice, rather than just starting off mezzo forte. All right, and then, get to mezzo forte here. All right, okay, so let's define our terms. Like, what is tenuto staccato? Tenuto staccato. All right, so just imagine that there you have a piece of sticky tape, masking tape, scotch tape, and you are tapping it with your finger, right? And it sort of sticks on but pulls away, right? And so it separates every time you do that. That is the kind of articulation that comes with tenuto staccato, right? It is sort of unga, right? So you're going unga, 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 accent, unga, 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 right? So it's ng, 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 because you have the ng of the tenuto and the of the staccato, right? So unga, 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 unga. So maybe you don't want that. I don't know. Maybe it would be better just to have staccatos, right? And then you could just throw in the occasional accent, da 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 da. And you have by now, Frank. I've seen your comments on other scores, other evaluations, so I know you're watching these. So you probably know, like, that I think that this is these artifacts from the piano score don't need to be here. These rests. Right, because that is there because the composer Barvinsky is giving a little bit of room for the melody octave right here, right, and yeah, and he's also wants like things to sort of change direction right here. So you could leave this in. You could write in some harmony that like helps to turn this into an arc instead of just da 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 da. It's almost like a waltz, right? So I think we want to get rid of the waltz. Yeah, the snare drum is very, very cool, and I like the build here on the suspended cymbal. And yeah, snare drum. So what happened to the tremolo beams here? Right? It's kind of strange that they're missing. Okay, so let's just talk about the entire approach here, right? Like we've got the rock solid octaves, all right. So those are pretty nicely scored. You know, bassoon, contrabassoon, and so on. And then we've got the sort of barking arcs down here, barking arcs, with a little bit of support here from the first bassoon on the second trombone part. But then we've got like the repeated thirds, and here I feel that they're really underpowered, right? You know, they like this, like you're giving it to the weakest member of the string section, if not the whole orchestra. It's not the weakest, but yeah, the harp would be the weakest maybe, yeah, or the celesta. So yeah, so like if you're going to be playing this mezzo forte, tenuto, staccato, and accents, and you're just giving your violas like over it, the violas have got to play staccatos. This part basically just disappears, right? So, you know, you got these horn players doing nothing, right? They're just kind of checking their email on their cell phones, right? So yeah, I mean, and these like middle winds and so on, like they're not doing anything. So I just feel that the violas cannot carry this, and you're also like not only are you doubling the lower pitch of the like second trombone right here, you're also doubling the first trombone with the cellos, right? So yeah, so this function here is well represented, and this is really, you know, is like 1/4 the strength. So you gotta bulk this up a little bit if you want it to compete. And you know what's more, you are scoring the melody at pitch, right? So you didn't hike it up an octave for excitement or just for clarity or anything else. So you know, so that even adds to the pressure that this function has got right here, just like just all of the stuff around it. So you know, we've got octave trumpets, we've got clarinets on top, we've got second violins on the bottom, which you know which are doubling with the lower trumpet right in here, but still, yeah. Yeah, so it they don't really get a lot of support until here, in terms of like the wind section and you know and the English horn as well. Yeah, it's kind of cool though, the wind color right in here. Right, and then, oops, sorry. Then a kind of a more deliberate leap up. Right, and here we get to like a solid fortissimo. You pulled back on the alto saxophone a little. That's wise. Yeah, and then here you got these builds in the French horn. Yeah, see, so I would say like there's no reason why this part can't come a little earlier, and then just you know these pushes can you know, I mean, you don't have to write it marcato before, right? But yeah, but I feel this is really fussy. You know, just watch out. Just make it staccato. I think is fine. Yeah, I think your bass clarinet could be supporting what's going on in your second bassoon. Okay, there just needs to be a little bit more tone weight there. I mean, it's just really fun. What puzzles me is that why you haven't gone to like maybe divisi octaves here in your second or your excuse me in your first violins, right? So that like if you've got that pitch up here in piccolo, right? Yeah. All right. Well, it's just a very cool interpretation of section D, and I really like that sort of delayed thump on the timpani. It's a very cool idea. And now let's look at the remainder of this piece, jumping to the beginning. So here you say percussion with a Like you don't need this any more than you would need a bracket like this saying winds, right? So everybody knows these are, this is the place where percussion go right under the timpani, so you don't need to tell us, right? So, and these are also percussion instruments, so what about them, right? Shouldn't the bracket go all the way down? But it's not needed, right? Okay, so let's talk about bisbigliando here. Okay, so this kind of bisbigliando where you're not actually alternating between two chords. I'm trying to think like the fact that we've got the D in there means that the D cannot be tuned enharmonically, right? So you could the B, excuse me, the F sharp and the B could be enharmonically tuned like with C flat and G flat, right? But then that kind of complicates matters when you go to this chord here, the G6 chord. So so this is going to be like the softer kind. Like I think you can get a little louder when you are alternating between enharmonic pitches, but like when you're sort of playing the same kind of over and over, it's just sort of like, it's sort of like scratching a cat's back. You can't do that too loudly, or else you get a wrist full of fangs, right? So it's the same. It's the same thing here. So just really, once again, marimba tremolo could work really, really well, or or other combinations of tuned percussion might be much stronger than what you're trying to do here with harp. So, like, it's not like you're really misusing bisbigliando. I want to hasten to say here, it's just more that the effect is going to be very minimal. And here you're anticipating that. You're saying, okay, well, I'm going to have triple P on my strings here, and that'll take care of it, and so on. But really, that'll just make the strings really soft, and then it's really very hard to kind of make out what what is going on here. So that's no problem. I mean, you could start a piece off triple P. Just force the audience to really pay attention. That's all good. But then there's some other problems here. Okay, when other things are happening, antique cymbal pitches tend to get obscured, right? It's like because they have so many weird overtones. In fact, someday I would like to do a tip on the overtones of antique cymbals and why they are they're problematic for really defining pitch. The whole purpose of them is that they kind of obscure the pitch, right? So here, if you really are leading bum bum, then giving a pitch to the antique cymbals that is a crucial part of understanding the direction of the music, I think is a little, it kind of works against the sense of going to this. So there's no lift up to it. It just goes there, right? And this little pitch here in the antique cymbals it just kind of feels like a random thing, like somebody hitting a triangle that has no pitch, right? All right, but the marimba part is beautiful. And, so much more effective. Like you're saying, soft mallets, piano on a marimba. That will be 3 times as loud as the bisbigliando. Yeah, sul ponticello. What if it were sul tasto? All right. So so it's, but other than that, it's nicely scored. And I love this, what you've got going on here in the winds. Yeah, so some excellent flute scoring here. Just keeping the flute up, right? And, instruments that have more mid-range capacity, like clarinets and English horn, they do their job, right? And then here when you're getting down to triple P, then, it's fine to take down your first flute all the way down to this E. Not that it'll be all that audible, but... And then here, this is strange. So you've got this solo harp part, and absolutely you should mark this solo, right? This is a harp solo. And then here you go to F flat. So F flat being the enharmonic equivalent of E. So this really should be look sort of like a back and forth type of tremolo between F flat and E, right? So that gives the player some, and then like here you mark that all F flats on the way down. You should mark it E's on the way down, all right? All right, and then this is a beautiful transition to this. And I feel that this is all really great scoring. You didn't chop up your phrases here. It's really nicely done. You have little swells in each of these. You have a really nice stacked harmony right in here. The octaves in the oboe and English horn, and the harmony below in your clarinets, and just little touches here. Maybe should these be staccato in your bassoon family instruments? And then, yeah, and that's really lovely right in here. The alto saxophone, it interferes a little bit with the continuity of other things happening, but it's all right. Okay. To me, it's refreshing after listening to, about 100 entries. It's really cool to hear, some sort of variety and variation so on in there. Yeah, I think this all really works great. So you're starting to bring in your violas and cellos and so on, trading off. It's a great idea. Supporting what's going on in the bass clarinet, but giving it a little bit more firmness. And you sort of drop back, right? Yeah, I'm not so sure if you need to do that. But it does make a good build. All right. Right, and this is really cool in here, the marimba. Yeah, really lovely. I like the rising bassoons here, and it all works fine. It's almost a marimba solo the way that you have it scored, and then once again we've got our antique cymbals coming in there. You might not even need the upbeat. You might just need the downbeat. Yeah, and this is really lovely. The alto saxophone solo right in here. You could mark those solo, right? Did you do that? Yeah, you did the first time. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, and then like, what's nice is that you take a little bit of attention away from the wandering, this sort of wandering line here, and really making it more about the alto saxophone commenting, right? And then the same thing here. I think that's a perfectly legitimate way of shifting our attention around. Nicely done. Yeah, and then here you just let your line wander further in flute, and this all works great. This doubling, because everything is going down to very soft dynamic, and there's very little to interfere with the combination of low flute and first violins. This is going to work great. All right, and then we get into the C section, so to speak. Now, so do you really want that kind of maybe it would be better just to have it like staccato. Yeah, but this is really lovely. The clarinet octaves, the F horns, all working great together. Just such a cool thing. And then like here you change the quality of the texture with a rippling harp and yabba-da-bum, bass clarinet and bassoons. Yeah, just like keeping everything nice and low there, along to the here you say third trumpet. This is a first trumpet part. Just because things are low doesn't mean that they're necessarily not a first trumpet part. I would say if it's a solo and it's a key part of the music, give it to the first trumpet player. They could play any part of their range. However, if the first trumpet player has just been playing a bunch of screaming high stuff, then give the low part to the lower player, okay? But yeah, or you could give this to the second and then first here and second, and just remember getting rid of your third trumpet part if you're not really using, if you're not scoring triads, or if you're not scoring all three trumpets at once ever, then it's a two trumpet part. Yeah, bum ba bum. Yeah, I think this is a really great setup to what you do at D, right? All right, so really nice score, Frank. Just hugely enjoyable. And I really love the way that you and the other Dotted Brev participants are, just really keeping me going in these last few weeks of evaluations, and we're just really making me want to come back for more and more and more, and having so much interest and life and imagination in your scores. Just there's not a wasted moment. It is all so worth looking at, and just and so different, right? Each score is so different from each other score. And so really, please keep at it. Send me something next year, please. I mean, it would be really interesting, especially with some of the background that I've seen you share on in Facebook, and on your page and so on. It would be really interesting to hear what you would do with next year's entry, next year's selection. So I'm just leaving more cryptic comments, aren't I? So I'll just stop now, and just really thank you once again for participating in this, for supporting on Patreon, for helping out Ukrainian musicians who are in desperate trouble right now, and for just being an all-around cool guy who has left some very supportive comments. And speaking of which, this is your chance, listener, viewer, to jump in and let Frank know like what you think about their score, any compliments, any possible way to help out some things that he might need a little help with, anything I might have forgotten or not noticed, or as you can see, like they're sometimes like real crucial things I might miss because I'm focusing on something else as I am checking out these scores. So I try to keep that to a minimum, but it is cropping up from time to time, especially like after a morning's composing. So thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you, website subscribers. Thank you, viewers, and YouTube channel subscribers. You guys are all awesome. And so I think I'll just give you another awesome present by dropping yet another evaluation today. So watch for that coming in 2 or 3 hours.